From conflict. May the way of Buddha usher in the dawn of non-violent global village Here is the after sound of thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Vairochana Mahamudra Mani Padme Jvala Avartaya
Please stand and join me in chanting the three refuges. So we will take refuge in Buddha Dharma Sangha, first in Sino-Korean, in keeping with our tradition, and then in English. So in preparation for this chanting, please take a moment to feel the contact of your feet with the floor of the earth beneath you. Breathe. And then throw your voice in as best you can. Now repeat after me in English. I go for refuge to the Buddha
I go for refuge to the Buddha
and resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment
and realize the great way.
and realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma
I go for refuge to the Dharma
and resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teaching
I will penetrate the teachings
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha
I go for refuge to the Sangha
and resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many
I will seek peace and happiness for the many
and transform this world into Buddha land unimpeded.
and transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
Please return to your places for another brief period of meditation. Please join me in some stretching as an end to our meditation practice. We have a newly upgraded microphone today. How's it working?
Already better. What?
So good morning, all you Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Thank you so much for being here today. Oh, those of you who were, well, let me start with this. Let's start with one of the three refuges to set the context for our discussion today. So as you recall, the second refuge is I go for refuge to the Dharma and resolve with all beings I will penetrate the teachings and uncover oceans of wisdom. So these oceans of wisdom await us. And there's all sorts of ways of uncovering the oceans of wisdom. Those who were here last week we were treated to an excellent drama talk by Jagwa and her husband, her partner, Jagat. They were talking about relationships, which we hope that they will do every Valentine's Day, and maybe even more often than that. Their talk started with reference to some of the basic teachings. So we talked about the fire sermon, one of the Buddha's very first teachings, in which he talked about how our own misunderstandings and confusions is kind of the fuel for this fire that keeps burning and burning and burning and keeping us in a state of suffering. We talked about the 3 marks of existence: impermanence, suffering, non-self. And we talked about 3 poisons. 3 poisons, again, being something that keeps us going around in this cycle of suffering. So that was greed, aversion, and delusion. And some of the examples that we focused in particular on that one. So, for example, greed, Jagwa and Jagat came up with this example of going to the store to buy lots of jars of peanut butter because they heard that that brand is going out of stock. And then aversions, we ended up in Cranky Town as a way that we sort of express an aversion. And then ignorance, the stories, the misunderstandings that we continue to make up. And then we got into little groups and we said, well, of these 3 poisons, which is the one that comes up for us most often? So we had a very interesting discussion about that. This is a good way for us to get to penetrate the teachings, to discover the wisdom that just lies there waiting for us. Today, I would like to go take a maybe extension of that and talk about wisdom with the aid of a scripture that we chant actually every day at the temple. This is the Heart Sutra. And because our tradition is Korean Zen, we usually chant it in Korean, and so it's more of a sound practice. But lately, because we have had many dear Sangha members pass away, we include this as part of special chanting that we do for people who died. And so we've been doing it in English. And I feel like I just discovered the Heart Sutra again, anew. And it's a chance to penetrate the teachings just a little bit. And so I'm going to invite you to join in that effort today. So our refuge says, I resolve with all beings. And so when we encounter a subtle teaching like this, I go back to that because my own personal wisdom is pretty limited, and I think maybe each one of us would say that. So with all beings, we are able to sort of uncover and discover the deep Dharma that's in these teachings. So before I read it to you, just a couple of definitions and context. So the Heart Sutra is about prajna paramita. Prajna referring to a special type of wisdom in Buddhism. So we had a discussion of this at the breakfast table the other day. What is prajna exactly? And so, in a conventional sense, when we talk about wisdom, we might think of university professors, Nobel Prize winners, wise elders, those who have insight. We don't often think of ourselves, but we are a source of wisdom. And when we work with teachings in such a way as asking these questions, what's my go-to, greed, anger, or delusion, we are uncovering some of the wisdom within ourselves. Prajna means something a little more than that. It means the type of wisdom that is like a transcendental understanding. It helps us get to a different understanding of reality, because we're asking what's the nature of reality, and what's the nature of operating from a place of deep spiritual insight. What's that like? One of the main ways that prajna is symbolized is a sword. Have any of you heard of this? Manjushri and the sword of wisdom that is sort of cuts through delusion. That's kind of an uncomfortable image. And as we get into some of these teachings, it does feel pretty uncomfortable. And the Heart Sutra is one of those. To set the context for this scripture, it is set up as a dialogue between two highly advanced spiritual practitioners. One of the practitioners is Kwanseum Posel Avalokitesvara, the bodhisattva that is on my left. And for those unfamiliar with this term, bodhisattva, it's not a real being, but rather an archetype of ideal characteristics that we aspire to. So this bodhisattva of great compassion, not great wisdom, it's interesting because it's about wisdom, but this bodhisattva of great compassion is one who hears the sounds of the world and is able to alleviate suffering. So we ask the question, how does this bodhisattva hear the sounds of the world? Is one interesting question. How do they alleviate suffering? Oftentimes, the statue of Kwanseum Posel is one of many arms, many hands, and each hand has a different tool for alleviating suffering. But in order to know how to do that, it has to come from a place of very deep wisdom. So Kwanseum Posel is able to see very directly into what is going on. And so the compassion arises as a result of that deep wisdom. The other character in the Heart Sutra is Shariputra. Shariputra was a real being, a disciple, one of the main disciples of the Buddha. And Shariputra was known for his great intellectual understanding and his ability to communicate the Buddha's teachings when the Buddha wasn't there. So, the Buddha's sick or absent or something, he says, Shariputra, please go give this Dharma talk for me. And he trusted Shariputra to do that. So the wisdom that Shariputra brings is more of a scholarly, intellectual kind of wisdom. So that's the setting for this dialogue between these two spiritual beings. And our Bodhisattva of great compassion, Kwanzaa Posal, throughout this teaching is sort of giving a lecture to Shariputra, saying, go deeper in your wisdom, go beyond just that intellectual understanding. So I'm going to read it to you, and with all scriptures like this, we ask that we put our hands together in hop chomp and breathe, and then listen deeply. Maha Prajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra. A Bodhisattva of great compassion, from the deep practice of Prajna Paramita, perceived the emptiness of all five skandhas and delivered all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form, form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. O Shariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. No form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind. No realm of sight, no realm of consciousness. No ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance. No old age and death, nor extinction of them. No suffering, no cause of suffering, no cease from suffering, no path to lead out of suffering, no knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but Prajna Paramita. Therefore, the mind is clear of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance, there is no fear. Away from all perverted views, one reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith in Prajna Paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then, the Prajna Paramita is the great Dharani, the radiant, peerless mantram, the utmost supreme mantram, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the Prajna Paramita. Gate, gate, para, gate, para, samgate, bodhi, saha. Gate, gate, para, gate, para, samgate, bodhi, saha. Gate, Paragate, paragate, parasamgate, Oni Saha the Maha Prajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra. Now I take my sword of wisdom. The sword of wisdom. Who feels enlightened after hearing that?
Where's your elephant?
That's right. Manjushri often rides an elephant who carries his sword. Okay, so now because the way I operate is I do like to go to these categories right away to help me see if I can understand things. So let's talk a little bit about this Heart Sutra. And then we're going to try to engage in some understanding. So yeah, maybe if somebody could hold this. So the Heart Sutra sort of challenges how is it that we construct reality. If you start over on the left-hand side, we have these dimensions of experience that we call skandhas: form, feeling, thought, impulse, consciousness. We're not going to get into these very deeply today. I think that's discussion for future, but just in brief, these dimensions are ways that we experience the world and to sort of name what they refer to. This is form, this glass is form, the water is form. Feeling refers to pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. My sip of water was very pleasant. Thought refers to words and labels. So I'm labeling this glass, the water, this helping of my voice so that I don't go hoarse. Impulse, that refers to volition. So we're translating these concepts and thoughts into the potential for action. So I go back to feeling pleasant. I want more. And then consciousness is our awareness in which we sort of hold all these other aspects, all these other kinds of skandhas. So the Heart Sutra says, whoops, now I'm on the Great Compassion Durrani. Let's start. Yeah. Get to the right page. So it talks about them being empty. The Bodhisattva of Great Compassion, from the deep practice of Prajnaparamita, perceived the emptiness of all five skandhas. What do we mean by empty? In Buddhism, that means empty of self-nature or empty of sort of fixed identity. So the Buddha, in his path toward enlightenment, discovered that all of these skandhas he was mistaking for a self, a separate self. So let's just take form, for example. Form is my body, and I can have the mistaken notion that this body is myself, and I'm separate from you all. So that's one of the teachings of the Heart Sutra. There are many, many teachings contained in here, and I've been dabbling with some of those who have studied it a lot. Um, one of them, one of the authors is Red Pine, and Dharma students, when we study this in the seminary, we read the Red Pine version. Another more contemporary Buddhist teacher is Gua Gu. That's spelled G-O-U-G-U, Gua Gu, is a Zen teacher from the Tallahassee um, Zen Center. And he is well versed in Chan, Chinese Buddhism. Chan is very, very close to our Korean Zen tradition. So he's got about 12 hours worth of talks out there on the Heart Sutra. So I've been listening to some of them, and they're quite fascinating. And the practice that I want us to engage in is going to come from Gua Gu. But anyway, back to skandhas. So how do we get to these skandhas? How do we construct reality is kind of the question. So we start with our sense faculties: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. Buddhism, we've added this mind as a sense faculty, which I think means we can sort of construct things. For example, when we're dreaming, these senses are not necessarily operating, but our mind is, and so we can still create things. Then we have perceptions, and this is maybe not the best label for this column because I don't want it to be confused with perceptions. It's more of a skandha. But anyway, this refers to form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and objects of mind. So for us to get to this transcendent wisdom, we need to start breaking down the skandhas. And how do we do that? We work backwards. So we work with things like sound, smell, taste, touch, objects of mind, and we work with our faculties to shake things up and to get out of our conceptual thinking. So this is what I want to experiment with a little bit today. And we can put this away. We're going to start with sound. And Gua Gu, in his description or teaching on the Heart Sutra, points out that the Bodhisattva of great compassion, Kwanzaa Posao, their path to enlightenment was through working with sound. And so I thought that was very interesting. I hadn't really thought of that before, because this is a bodhisattva that hears the sounds of the world and then alleviates their suffering. So the bodhisattvas, all the great bodhisattvas, we're having a discussion today, how to achieve enlightenment. And Kwanzaa Posao said it's working through with this, with sound. So I'm going to invite us to engage now in a little contemplation on sound. So please get yourself in a meditation posture, and we'll see what our experience of this is. So just quiet your mind, quiet your body. Become aware of the sounds that are around you and within you. Many sounds. I can hear sort of a steady hissing sound. Birds. People moving. Breathing. I pay attention. I can hear the sound of my heartbeat. So now please choose one sound. I think that's the water boil starting to boil is what I'm hearing. But you choose one sound in particular, something that is sort of gentle and steady, and bring romance here. Just let it come to you. Begin to embody the sound like it's going through you, vibrating in you. Beneath the sound is silence. So notice the silence. Be aware of any gaps between sound and silence. Ask yourself, is silence another sound? Allow the sound and the silence to become one. This leaves you with just hearing. No need to add anything. And as we shift our attention to just hearing, we experience a kind of hollowness and emptiness, a freshness, a new beginning. Our practice to a close. I was hoping we would have a little time to discuss it. We're sort of close to being out of time, but we do have 5 minutes. So this is just a little taste of the Heart Sutra, and in future talks, maybe we'll go deeper. But I'm curious, I'll pass the microphone around a little bit. What was your experience, either with this practice or with the reading of the Heart Sutra? Whoever would like to speak.
I found it helpful hearing the heart all out loud in English as opposed to reading. And it helped me to hear the words. And it's one thing to hear the emptiness inside, it's another thing to hear the heart talk. It was very enlightening that there are 6 senses as opposed to the 5.
I really enjoyed the reminder that it's a dialogue between Bodhisattva and a student. I think of students' minds trained in critical thinking, and at the heart of the Heart Sutra is not just a negation of what is form, what is not form, but a negation of that negation. It really cuts at the root.
I really like the reminder of what the Buddha's concept of emptiness is really about. Because when I first started studying, I had, a very different, shall we say, concave understanding of emptiness. And since then, in my practice, the understanding of emptiness, when you summarize it so well as saying empty of self, and it becomes an incredibly freeing concept.
Okay, let's leave it here for today. Thanks for hanging in. This is one of the more, if you're here for the first time today, your head might be spinning a bit. Usually we're a lot more practical than this. But sometimes it's fun to go into these deeper teachings that are out there. Let's have some announcements, and then we will close with the 4th grade vows after.
I'll just project. Okay. Thank you for coming today. We have our weekly Sunday 10 a.m. service every week throughout the month. On the 1st and 3rd Sundays, we also do a 4 p.m. service. We have our monthly all Sangha or family services every 2nd Sunday. So the next one is coming up on March 10th, next week.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, thank you. 2 weeks.
That's not.
Apologies. Things coming up on our schedule. We have a retreat on March 9th from 9 a.m. to 5. If you have any questions, you can ask us in Gray about that. We also have our spring Yeongmaeng Jeongjin from April 3rd through 7th. Is that here in town or in Chicago? It is here in town. Great. Our introductory meditation class, our next one starts March 21st. That's Thursday evenings from 6:30 to 8:30. Or we do have overnight session. So it's all of those Thursday nights condensed into one overnight. The next one of those is coming up the evening of March 22nd. Our yoga classes are Tuesday nights, 6:30 to 8. The current round started February 20th, but you can drop in as you like. The next round starts on April 2nd. We have our study groups. All of this is on this form, which is just around the corner. So if you want any more detail, you can take one of these with you or talk to any of us. Wanted to thank all of you for coming. Is there anything I'm missing? Yes, Jaga.
So we will soon begin the precept study group, which is an annual event, which leads up to the precept taking ceremony on the 4th of July. So if you are interested in taking precepts or renewing precepts, which is the process of studying the moral path of Buddhism and formally becoming Buddhist and receiving a Dharma name, please stay either today from 12 to 12:45 or so in the Sangha House conference room. It'll be an informational session. You can kind of ask some questions, learn more about the process. We'll have a second informational meeting March 10th after the family service. And then the group will begin meeting Thursday evenings, March 21st for, I think it's 8 meetings every other week leading up to the summer event. So, thanks.
And Recovered Dharma will meet at noon today in the historic temple right next door, up the steps through the door. Please take your shoes off and then just keep coming straight ahead.
Thank you. Susan?
Regarding the wonderful yoga class, our teacher is not able to be with us this week, so we will not have a yoga class this week. If you're planning to drop by, no. But come the following.
Come next week instead.
Quite wonderful.
Yes.
Together Action today is in the dining room of the Sangha House, and it will be the process of making lotus lanterns, and all are welcome. John Joya will be leading us in. So just go across the backyard and in the door, and you'll see a big table in the dining room. Sit right down.
It's fun. If you're here for the first time, do it. It's fun.
And when you see Jo Young, wish her happy birthday today.
So as always, our temple exists and operates thanks to everybody's kind donations of time and money. There's a fishbowl if you would like to leave a monetary donation. Otherwise, feel free to participate in all of the things that we have going on.
I thought of one more thing. Thanks so much to everyone who came yesterday from 3 to 5. We were moving bushes. It was quite a vigorous, wonderful activity. And there's always that on on Saturday afternoon, 3 to 5. And I'm understanding that the weather is getting a little warmer, so it's really a good time to be in the garden. Although it was cold yesterday, but because of the work, we were pretty warm.
Okay, let's all stand and, oh, wait a minute, before we do that, apologies. Sit down again. Let's say the 4 great vows together. These are Bodhisattva vows. All beings, one body.
All beings, one body.
I vow to liberate.
I vow to liberate.
Blind passions, one root.
Blind passions, one root.
I vow to terminate.
I vow to terminate.
Dharma gates, one mind.
Dharma gates, one mind.
I vow to penetrate.
I vow to penetrate.
The great way of Buddha,
The great way of Buddha.
I vow to realize.
I vow to realize.
And now we'll stand and end with 3 formal vows. As we exit, I ask for your assistance with picking up the room. And so we will leave the mats and cushions that touch the carpet and remove the mats and cushions on the outside rows. So on this side of the room, the mats and cushions go on the stage. On the other side, the side closest to the door, the mats go in the corner and the cushions on the shelf. But I have a volunteer to help with Jago, could you maybe help with the mats? Thank you.
Guess what? They found one of those at the Chicago Temple debates. So we're going to pick these up. The red and green thing. So we'll have matching. Oh, nice. Oh, I see. Yeah, basic sitting.